It's been a little over a year since I began my journey to platinum every game in the Batman Arkham franchise. I recently platinumed Arkham Origins and thought the next game would be Arkham Knight, right? No. Turns out there's another Batman game that takes place shortly after Origins. That game would be Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. I'll be honest, I did not know this game existed until I came across ThatBoyAqua's retrospective on the game. It originally released on 3DS and PlayStation Vita, and I have no idea how I missed it at the time. I had a Vita, and it came out on the same day as the version released on PS3, so I have no idea how this flew over my head. A port was later released on PS3, Xbox 360, and PC, which is the version I decided to go for. While it's not a bad game, I didn't have the best time with it, platinum trophy or otherwise. But what does the platinum journey look like? Well, it was pretty tedious. Estimated to take 35 hours and 3 separate playthroughs, I certainly had a grind ahead of me. Let's take a look at what this journey had in store. Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate takes place months after the end of Arkham Origins. On his regular patrol around Gotham, he runs into Catwoman, who's stealing information from the DEO. I chased after her and fought a few enemies along the way, which gave me a few trophies within the first few minutes. The first two were for getting a 12 and 24 hit combo, followed by catching Catwoman.
Just some files, and I've already used this to send them to my employer.
A couple of weeks pass by, and we learn that Blackgate is under siege yet again by Penguin, Black Mask, and the Joker. With help from Catwoman, we go through Blackgate one building at a time, stopping each criminal who is in our way. This is where the game opens up and allows us to tackle the story in any way that we want. This game is the most Metroidvania feeling out of any of the Arkham games, so there's going to be a lot of backtracking as you unlock different gadgets to access different parts of Blackgate. I like this freedom, but there's definitely a path that feels more straightforward than the rest. I started with the most tedious route and went after Black Mask in the industrial building. With a power outage leaving the elevators and lights without power, I headed into the sewers where I faced Solomon Grundy. With this being my first time playing, I was pretty confused about how to defeat him, but after utilizing the new analyzer feature, it finally clicked and I was able to put Solomon Grundy back in the grave. I already touched on a couple of combat trophies this game has, and there were plenty more ahead of me. I just want to say that this combat is terrible. It's not as fleshed out as you would expect in the main Arkham games, which is to be fully expected, but it feels so rough as I don't think the combat fits the limited scope of 2D. This next trophy I was going for is a perfect example. I had to beat down 10 enemies, and everyone knows how this works in the main games. How fluid it feels as Batman leaps effortlessly to the enemy to stun them. You're not going to get that here. You can literally be right next to them and he'll do a cape stun in place, looking like an absolute idiot. This pretty much summarizes how frustrating the combat can be, but this is only the beginning. I did get this trophy early on, and finally ran into Black Mask. His boss fight was interesting. It was very frustrating at first trying to figure out what to do, but like Solomon Grundy, once I figured it out, thanks to a god of course, I felt very stupid. With power restored, I went after Penguin in the cell blocks. He has some kind of fight club going on we just so happen to interrupt. Our opponent is Bronze Tiger, and his boss fight, while very similar to the first Catwoman fight, introduces some new moves to further test our combat skills.
Finish him! Just do it.
He ends up helping us out, and it's a chase to catch up to Penguin. Backtracking through the cell blocks, we get stuck in a room that releases some gas that's supposed to sedate the inmates. I'm so sorry, Batman, I really needed a trophy. Penguin ends up escaping to a lighthouse, but I don't have one of the gadgets to get across this gap, so it's off to the administration building where Joker is waiting for us. This brings me to another aspect of the game, which is stealth. It worked fine for the most part, but the fact that enemies could spot you from a mile away was annoying at times. Luckily, there was only one trophy, which required performing 20 stealth takedowns. We find the warden, who is strapped to bombs that will go off no matter what we do. The only way to get the warden free is to short circuit the bombs, which require the shock batarang. This takes us to a different part of the administration building, where we run into Deadshot. I enjoyed this boss fight a lot as the camera changes perspective to Deadshot's sniper and we have to dodge his shots. Just a nice change from everything.
There are hostages down in the Arkham wing that need help, remember?
I'm still looking for the shock batarang, but this is where I attempted possibly the most difficult trophy in the entire game. There's a room that Joker locks you into where a ton of enemies swarm Batman. Again, I do not like the combat, so trying to get a 50 and 100 hit combo was incredibly frustrating. The 50 hit combo wasn't too bad, but the 100 hit combo was a nightmare to get. The combat is just so obtuse that there were so many times when I dropped a combo for something that felt out of my control. It also resulted in a broken controller. After a couple of rage quits and about 20 minutes of replaying the same section over and over again, I did eventually get the 100 hit combo. On a more calmer note, something I have not mentioned yet are the detective cases. Throughout all three buildings are clues that tie into this. Some of these are pretty easy to spot, but others are hidden pretty good. However, this is one of the many secrets that Blackgate has to offer. There are 14 detective cases, but I got a trophy after completing my first one. I freed the warden and was soon able to defeat the Joker.
See if I can get an overview.
The only person I had left was Penguin. Now that I had all the necessary equipment, I headed back to the lighthouse and stopped him too.
I mean, obviously I'm one of the least dangerous blokes in here.
We get inside the Arkham wing, only to find Bane being drained of his venom. It turns out this was all a part of Catwoman's plan, and of course, things are never that easy for Batman. Now, depending on the boss you saved for last, this next objective is going to be different. Since I defeated Penguin last in this playthrough, Catwoman has 5 hostages spread around Blackgate. However, for Black Mask, it's going to be junction boxes, and Joker has bombs that need to be defused. This is where the 3 different playthroughs come from, as there's a trophy for completing each of these objectives. On top of that, once you complete it, each playthrough offers a belt unlocking different costumes you can wear. I'll dive into that aspect more in a second, but if you forgot to pick up this belt, that means you would have to do the exact same playthrough all over again. I certainly did not want to do that, so after I saved the last Penguin hostage, I got the belt for the new 52 suit. Now, I could finish this playthrough, but there are a lot of collectibles spread around Blackgate that need to be collected. I honestly wish I paid more attention to this as I ran through the story, because backtracking through this jungle of a maze was irritating. I guess now would be the best time to dive into the collectibles. Aside from the clues for the detective cases, which I ended up completing all of them, there are also these crates that have secrets. Some of them upgrade Batman's armor, his gauntlets, and Rush, a new ability that increases your attack damage. Some of these crates have suit pieces that unlock a suit when each piece is found. This includes a cowl, chest piece, gauntlet, belt, and boots. There are a couple of suits that have all of the pieces available from the get-go, like the Blackest Night. But like I mentioned before, 3 of them have a piece locked behind our last objective from the 3 villains, so the rest of them are going to be found during later playthroughs. The final collectible to look out for is tied to their respective villains. In the industrial building are 20 Black Masks, the administration has 20 Joker teeth, and the cell blocks have 20 Penguin cages. The only one I completed during this playthrough was destroying all of the Joker's teeth. I honestly could have wrapped up the other 2 since I needed 1 or 2 left for each of them, but by this point I was ready to wrap up this playthrough, so I saved it for the next one. Heading to the lighthouse again, I fought Catwoman one last time in one of the more engaging boss fights.
Who wanted Bane?
I already told you I don't know.
The ending of the game is interesting. Something I never mentioned in my Arkham Origins video was that the ending laid down the foundation for the Suicide Squad, which is picked up here. There are cutscenes interspersed that show Amanda Waller talking about the different villains, and the end credits here further set that up. I did find it a bit odd setting up the Suicide Squad in an origin story, and while Rocksteady is making a Suicide Squad game, I doubt it's based on what was set up here, but I could be wrong. With the first playthrough wrapped up in roughly 8.5 hours, it was time to start playthrough number 2. This playthrough was a lot better as the route I took felt more natural compared to my first and eventually third playthrough. I also had access to the Blackest Night suit, which practically made me invincible. This time I saved Black Mask for last, so I went after Joker and Penguin first. This order was important because I needed to get the Shock Batarang in administration before fighting Solomon Grundy later for another trophy. When I reached him this time, I found an even faster way to take him down. With the Shock Batarang, I threw it into a pool of water, which took him down instantly. As I went back through these areas, I made sure to look out for the masks and penguin cages. The last thing I took care of here was disabling all the junction boxes Black Mask placed around the map, which gave me the belt for the 1 million suit. After 4 hours and 22 minutes, I finished my second playthrough and I only had one left. I was able to pretty much beeline through my third playthrough since I only needed a few more trophies. To my surprise, I got the rest of them in a matter of seconds. After defeating the Joker as my last boss and defusing his presence, I grabbed the belt for the Red Sun suit, which gave me the last suit I needed. And since I found all the detective cases, pickups, and upgrades for my previous playthroughs, I unlocked that trophy, which gave me the platinum. After 3 playthroughs in 15 hours, 20 less than the estimated time, I finally unlocked the platinum for an Arkham game not a lot of people know about. There were some good moments during this journey, along with some infuriating ones also. Moments when I was struggling with the combat or felt lost throughout Blackgate really brought down my level of enjoyment. However, once things started to click and I moved on to my second and third playthroughs, I was able to find some enjoyment. This was my first real taste of a traditional 2D Metroidvania, and while it wasn't the best experience, I don't want to knock a whole genre when I don't have much experience with it myself. I'll be completely honest, there were a couple times early in my first playthrough when I really considered dropping the game altogether. I just was not having a great time during the game's early hours. It took a while for it to click, and once it did, I was just rolling through this game. It was cumbersome having to play it 3 times, especially right after Arkham Origins, but when everything was done, I'm glad that I pulled through and got the platinum. Now, there's only one more left. That's all for the video. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any experience with Arkham Origins Blackgate, I am very curious to know your thoughts on it. Make sure to leave a comment down below. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. See you guys next time.